just want to be able to read, to be inspired by something that interests me. And again, that's done alone. And there's so much negative connotation that comes around solitude or, loneliness. And it feels like it's something that we're always trying to hide from or we're trying to avoid. And there's a lot of psychological studies that have proven that people that are able to be comfortable alone, that are able to be in their own space and in the company of themselves. Henry Thoreau, talks about him. There's no better company than his own in solitude. Everyone, welcome to the Meeting Your Soul podcast. I'm Farah, your host, and today's episode is about solitude. And I think there's a lot of negative connotations around being alone. And it's something that I have ran away from for the majority of my life, to be perfectly honest. I slept in a room with my sisters or my parents until I was a very old age. I never knew really what it was like to be alone for the majority of my childhood. There was never any time where I could be, really, ultimately. And I spent a lot of time with friends. I spent a lot of time in these other environments to where I could constantly be inundated with some type of engagement. If that was with a family member, if that was with a friend, or with my parents, TV. There's all these things that we kind of do to consume our attention so that we don't really have to just be still. And I think that that's why when I got into meditation and kind of just took this time to be able to reconnect to myself, I really started to embrace this idea of, alone time, to be able to read a book, and I used to do it just on the bus on my way to work each day. And I would literally meditate. I had like a 45-minute, I worked for the UW School of Medicine for a long time. And I used to take the bus, it was about 45 minutes from Ballard, and I'd take it to campus. And I would read or I would decompress. I would just kind of allow myself to just kind of rehash the day, be alone with my thoughts. And I don't know if there was really ever a time before that where I really allocated time and space to be able to really dedicate to this idea of being really present before I was exposed to it. And once I allowed myself the opportunity and incorporated the opportunity to where this was consistently available, did I really notice the benefits and the effects of having time alone. And I don't know, even then, and these were even just short spurts where I would do it on a regular basis. If you have a spouse or if you have children, it's really hard to really be like, deuces, I'm going to go do something and be by myself for hours on end. And it is. But I think that there is even little things that we can do on a day-to-day basis that can really benefit us and give us the that what we're seeking when it comes to solitude. And there's a ton of studies that have shown the benefits of solitude, from increased productivity. Like when you're at work and you are working on a task, like the only way that you're really going to crush through like a solid group of projects, or even just one project, can and be focused and diligent about it, is probably going to have to be alone. To be able to work through, to problem solve, to be able to think of new ideas, to be able to creatively problem solve whatever's going on and what task is at hand. There's value in that space, that silence that comes along with working alone. And so that's one of definitely things. I think increased productivity is something where I will go. I love going into my office. I work for a real estate firm, so I'll go into my office and I'll be able to connect with people and chat, but I'm not getting anything done. I'm not getting shit done. I'll tell you that much right now. But when I go to like a coffee shop, I put my headphones in and I just like zone in. I can crush like 4 or 5 different things that like in no time. And I'm able to get creative like inspiration for like a blog post or a newsletter that I'm writing, or even like doing like marketing stats and organizing them and then formulating them into new words. Like all of these things occur when I'm in my own creative bubble. And that is something that I have really valued, is this idea of being able to like having the alone time in order to accomplish things, so that when I'm done and when that I am then immersed back into a social setting, I'm so much more present and available because I'm not thinking about something else that I need to do. And there's also, a lot of people talk about increased creativity. There's this opportunity for us to be able to access, I think, our intuition, that little magic within us, to be able to initiate the magic of creation. And if we are inundated with buzzes of our phone or our email or all of these distractions, how do you really access that center point within you if you're not giving yourself the time or the allowance of to real presence and to real, it's, and I was trying to think of the best way to put it, because I think especially with creativity, there is this void that needs to be opened up in order for us to have that download or that inspiration or that creative insights into something so much bigger than ourselves. And for me, I also, I have to, for me to create yoga sequences, I will, set up my little mat, I'll turn on some music and I'll breathe for a little while, I'll meditate, and then I'll just start to move. And I don't necessarily always try to predict, like I have a maybe anatomical focus or something I'm working towards, but I don't necessarily try to predict. It's almost like one posture at a time, one step at a time, like if someone's a painter, one stroke at a time. I have a lot of friends that are musicians or different artists in different facets or mediums, and they've all said, to be able to really be able to open themselves up to that they need to be able to slow down, to breathe, to be able to access presence, to get that magic. And I think collaboration is obviously essential in so many different ways. And, to be able to get those sparks of, like ideas from other people is valuable beyond measure. And I think that most people would agree with me on that. But I think that there is a time and place, and there can be a balance of both. So solitude allows us that space and that energy to be able to refocus it inward in order for something to sprout from it. And in addition to increased creativity, I think solitude also gives us the opportunity for self-study. Each night when I get ready for bed, I take a few moments to reflect on my day, and I don't think that everyone has to do this by any means, but there's an opportunity for me to just rehash in a very productive manner, like thinking of the things I'm grateful for, focusing on what I'm trying to create, and really kind of moving through, how did I feel today? What's coming up for me? I meditate in the morning. That's also a checkpoint for me to be able to be in silence, to be in stillness, to go inward, to be able to cut off the outside world in order to connect to myself. And when you, again, are constantly around people, engaging, it's really hard, especially for someone who's empathic, to be able to really disengage or to cut off from the energies and the motivations of the people in the world around us, to be able to recenter onto what's important to me, what's important to my goals, what's important to where I'm trying to be. How can I show up as a better mother? How can I show up as a better friend? How can I show up as a better partner, a friend? Like, there's moments where if we're constantly getting distracted and doing other things and never allowing that self-reflection to occur, then how do we really grow as individuals if we never even reflect on how we're doing currently? And that is something that I also find extremely valuable. I journal a lot. I do a lot of self-reflection as a whole. And that is always done in solitude. It's always done for me to just spend a few moments alone, to be able to think about, what's occurred, how I'm feeling about a situation. I read a lot. So it's like reading. And so, it's nice to, sometimes I do like to read to people. I do like to read out loud. I think it's really fun, but especially if it's someone that has similar interests, or I feel like something's really just booms, hit me in the dome, and then I'm like, all right, this is what I want to share this with someone. But more often than not, I really just want to be able to read, to be inspired by something that interests me. And again, that's done alone. And there's so much negative connotation that comes around solitude or, loneliness. And it feels like it's something that we're always trying to hide from or we're trying to avoid. And there's a lot of psychological studies that have proven that people that are able to be comfortable alone, that are able to be in their own space and in the company of themselves, Henry Thoreau, talks about there's no better company than his own in solitude. And he was able to be in a cabin by himself for an extended period of time. There's so many different opportunities for us to be able to regroup, to be able to even observe, to be in the nature, and to like really bask in the beauty and the awe of what's around us, but only when we give ourselves the space, the time, the ability to step back, to not be running to the next thing, not to be engaging, not to be talking, not to be responding into anything else, so that we can truly just be, to lean into that yin energy. And but there's the resilience that comes along with being able to be alone and to be okay being alone. And I think that that's something that I haven't experienced until very recently in my life. I've always had a best friend, had a spouse for 12 years. I was in a partnership where, yes, we were very independent. We enjoyed our own company. He could go off and do his thing. He traveled a lot, so he would be off. I'd be alone, and I would be completely fine with it. I didn't have to cook for anyone else. I could do my own thing. I could chill. I could go to yoga. I could, work on my projects, my things. But then we would always come together. And I think there was always that safety net of knowing that I had a partner. I had someone that was right next to me, that if I needed them, I could call them. If I needed to talk to them, that they would be there. If I wanted to text, that they would respond. And not until after the divorce and after our separation and all of these things, where I really didn't have that person anymore. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of my support network. I lost a lot of people. And that was really challenging for me. That was really difficult. And I remember there was a time I actually woke up in New York City. It was New Year's Day. And I was in my hotel room by myself. And I just bawled. I uncontrollably cried for an hour. And I was like, I'm alone. I'm alone. And that seemed so terrifying. Sounded so scary to me, because I was like, the divorce was almost final. I was there with a friend, but she had her family, and I was like there. I didn't have my daughter or anything. And I was like, I'm really by myself. And it sent me into this negative spiral. And then that whole next year, which I think it's really easy when those things kind of occur to go into a negative headspace and to wallow. But instead of doing that, I decided to do the opposite. I was like, what? I'm going to embrace this. I've never been by myself. I've always been in partnership. I've always had people surrounding me. So this year is my year to be alone. And I was like, let's make it glorious. I'm going to love being alone by the end of this year. I know it sounds totally bananas, but it was my goal that year. And so this was last year, not this was a long time ago. This is very, very recent, or fairly recent. And so this is last year. And by the end of the year, I went on trips alone. I never traveled by myself ever. I was terrified to do it. I was scared. I don't want to, someone's going to kidnap me. But I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I was really safe. I was like, okay, I can travel alone. I can do this. I can put myself in a safe place. And there was so much freedom in it. I could go and I could meet random people. I could talk to someone, or my day would just manifest in this way that I would have never predicted if I was and I'm a people pleaser. I like to kind of curate a good experience for everyone. I like to make sure everyone's having a great time. And so for me to not have to worry about any of that, to throw all of my worries into the wind, and for it to just be me, and to me just be available to what the universe had to provide me in that moment, was one of the most beautiful and transformative experiences of my entire life. And it's something that I will always hold close to my heart. And over the course of that year, I allowed myself to spend more time alone than I have ever done my entire life. I, would, hang out at my house by myself. I would, stay in sometimes. I had a fabulous group of friends, and I'm so grateful for them. And they're still, my ride or dies. And they're people that were there for me when I really needed it. So was I truly, truly alone? Still not. But I think we thrive in community. Humans need that connection, that interaction in order to feel united in community. But there was something about allowing myself to go in deeper, to find that connection within myself, with God, with the spirit that resides within me, so that I would be able to show up more fully, more wholly, more confidently for everyone else around me. And once I really knew me, I knew myself, I knew who I was, then I recognized that I was fine. And that's the resiliency, to be able to be alone, to be even sometimes rejected, in order to show yourself that you're still worthy, that there's other people that still want to be friends with you, that still want to hang out with you, that there's men that are going to be the right fit for you, or women that are going to be the right fit for you, that you don't have to settle. Like, the power that came with that was incredible. I was then so sure of myself, my decisions, the things that I would do, the things I would tolerate, that the rest of it didn't matter, because I knew what I deserved and what I wanted to do, and I pursued that with vigor. I pursued my career. I went after what I wanted. I was able to travel. I was able to do the things, and I was comfortable no matter where I was, because I was comfortable with myself. And that is what I'm trying to encourage other people to do. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You know, you don't have to go on like a month-long trip around like Southeast Asia in order to feel like you're really alone, you know, or to really find that solitude and that sanctuary within us. And a lot of people do that too. And, you know, more power to you. I wish I could. But, you know, I think that there's so much of an emphasis that's put on this idea of feeling accepted to feel included, that what if you accepted yourself? What if you included yourself? What if you were simply enough? Then you wouldn't need all of this outside, this exterior validation, that you would find that internally. And once I found that within myself, then the world was my oyster. I was able to run and really, really pursue the things that mattered most to me without having to get the confirmation from other people that I needed to do it or I shouldn't do it. And so when you think of ways to spend time alone, it could be, you know, a 10-minute walk outside. And which I've shared with you guys that I do that on a regular basis. It could be, you know, an evening out alone, taking yourself out to dinner. I know a lot of people that do not go out to eat by themselves. I do it far too often. But it's like, there's so much like to sit in your own company, to be able to like eat good food, pick out whatever you want. I love it. I enjoy it probably a little too much. Then it's like to go coffeeing alone, or go do an activity that you enjoy alone. I've gone to art events alone. I've gone to concerts alone. I've gone to, this was all last year. I just like jumped, as I do with most things. I jumped in both feet, and I was like, okay, what can I do alone that would normally make me feel super weird, that I would like absolutely, my skin crawls with the idea of even thinking about doing this by myself. And I did it. I did all the things. I don't really go to movie theaters. But some people will go to movie theaters alone, to, like I said, go for a walk, to go to a beach, to go on a hike, you know, and obviously safety first, you know, always be aware of your surroundings, always pick, you know, have people know where you are, where you're going to be, like all of those pieces, so that in case something does seriously happen, that you do have the comfort of knowing that someone's kind of looking out for you and that will be able to help if it need be. But to be able to really challenge yourself on